Hi everyone, my name is Rakel Karls.Rakel. Thank you so much to have me here. I come from Iceland, but based here in Copenhagen, where I have my studio. So when Mohammed asked me what I wanted to talk about, I thought to myself, instead of talk about my own project, the project that I'm working on and what I've been working on in the past, I rather wanted to talk about how much impact architects and designers have on our society today. And that's kind of where the title came, the different layers we create as architects and designers. But before we jump into it, I kind of want to talk, make a little bit of introduction about what Rakel Karls Studio is all about. I started my studio in mid-2017, and my first project was to work for the 2-Michelin restaurant, Noma, that is based here in Copenhagen as well. If you don't know that restaurant, I totally recommend you to check it out. They have asked the chef, Torsten Smith, to create a sibling restaurant that is today called Restaurant Barr. So the plan was that Restaurant Barr was going to overtake the existing, the existing space that Noma was in, so they can relocate to its new premises. So for creating a new experience for Restaurant Barr, I played the role as their architect consultant. In a close collaboration with the Norwegian architect company Snøhetta that created the overall space experience. This project is a very nice project, and if you haven't been in Copenhagen, and when compared to how time is today, is when you can come, I totally recommend you to visit this restaurant. It's a beautiful experience, actually it is. But from there, I've been working on residential buildings, renovation, transformation on old buildings, furniture design, industrial design, and this year I've been working creating communication through art, collectible designs, paintings, and sculptures. Yeah, I'm kind of all over. But my overall vision and mission is to influence on the emotional and psychological well-being of humans through architecture, design, and art. So, and that's why I kind of wanted to talk about the subject, different layers we create as architects and designers. And what I mean about different layers is kind of want to explain the definition of the different layers. So most of us know that we could not exist if we didn't have those physical and non-physical layers. It's just a fact that every cell in our body has its own intelligence and its own memory. So fundamentally, we shape our layers from our life experience. That said, our memories. So what I'm trying to say here is I'm using layers as a definition of memories as well. It's like we create our memories through our life experience. But when I say layers, we kind of layer our memories through with new memories. But still today, we are still affected by the old memories that maybe we've gotten when we were kids. So these are the layers I'm talking about that architects and designers a lot can affect. But to understand how the architecture and design can impact on humans psychologically is important to understand at least the basic levels. So what we all know about, we have our 5 senses. We have sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. Our senses are our connection to the outside world. This is how we kind of navigate as well take everything in, everything that's around us, the nature or the man-made cities, world, man-made nature. They, like those senses, send a message to our brain, which interprets the message and perceives what is around us. A majority of the information that our senses take in is never recognized by our brain. And this is quite interesting for me, is that what you sense, all these 5 senses and more, we have like, everything that we take in, we are not aware of it. The brain, it doesn't, we are not conscious about what actually we're sensing all the time. So our senses acts as receivers and gateways to our minds and bodies. Therefore, they receive any stimulus from the surrounding environments and influence our minds and body physically and psychologically. So that said, architecture and design exists to create the physical environment within people lives in. We are creating everything around us except kind of nature, like man-made nature, if it is. But architecture and design is just more about the built environment and the surrounding. It is a lot about, as well, about our culture. It many times stands as representation of how we see ourselves or the world, influenced either positively or negatively by sensual elements in the environment. So that's that it always influences us no matter how. And those senses are those that is taking it in to your body, consciously or not. And it's kind of what Winston Churchill said in 1943, we shape our buildings and afterwards our building shapes us. We know, for example, cities, buildings, and design can affect our mood and well-being. So human behavior in architecture spaces is considering being the reaction of what you sense in that space. So the effect that the space gives you, it kind of reflects to your human behavior, your behavior in that space. So it could be everything from the layout of the space to the material finishes that can contribute towards health, mood, and productivity. For example, it's been shown that people who work in well-designed spaces take less sick leaves, are more focused, and generally contribute more to the company. On the other hand, sterilized concrete landscapes and unimaginable buildings cause higher level of stress. And this is nothing new to us today. And a lot of big societies are working towards how we can fix the problem. But it's also therefore the concern of the architects is always to create appropriate physical environment so that the user, us, can improve his or her physical and psychologically condition. We always strive for creating something that solves a problem, usually. But never before have we been able to create wealth and security for so many people as it is possible today. But yet, it's never been so many of us suffering from depression, loneliness, or stress. It's, and again, big society, we are figuring out today, this is kind of happening, and we are working towards it, but we have to have it, we have to remember it. So, because we're talking about this, I want to come with one example that I want to show you. I want to show you, so I want to show you a little video about Prodigal housing complex. So in America, in St. Louis in 1950s, they created 33 apartments block designed by Minoru Yamasaki. This creation was to create a better life for the people. And it started well. It started as a success. But I want to show you how it actually ended. It's a small video that I want to show, so bear with me. I'm going to change my screen. Here we go. So I am going to share this one. You can see this, right? Okay, nobody.
Rakel, do you want to share the sound?
Say again?
Do you want to share the sound of the video, or it's only without sound?
2 seconds. Yeah. Yes. Share the sound. It's here.
Resort, I'd say.
These developments are run by the St. Louis Housing Authority. This is a far cry from the crowded, collapsing tenements that many of these people have known. Here in bright new buildings with spacious grounds, they can live.
It was a very beautiful place, like a big hotel resort, I'd say.
It was like an oasis in the desert. All this newness. I never thought I would live in that kind of a surrounding.
What happened?
Well, one day we woke up and it was all gone.
We pulled up with the moving van. I knew at that point that it was hell on earth.
Pruitt-Igoe looks like a battleground. Vandalism and neglect have left fear among the remaining occupants.
In the middle 50s, St. Louis thought it had solved its low-cost housing needs, but instead a monster was created.
The experiment had gone terribly awry. It was just uncontrollable.
Pruitt-Igoe is such a symbol that we tend to forget that it is no different than the city that surrounded it. What happened to St. Louis was tragic, but that's simply not how we've told the story.
Pruitt-Igoe was always fighting against this terrible riptide of destruction in the midst of an economy that was dying.
The strong, tightly knit communities and families in which I grew up had begun to shatter, and it wasn't there. And it was one of the most tragic things I've seen.
It seemed to me that we were being penalized for being poor. That caused so much anger.
Persons that don't have a decent place to stay are willing to take these kinds of chances. Where we live, we're taking chances.
This is it. This is out of control, and we are no longer going to put up with it. We're not going to tolerate this anymore.
I'm saying as tenants, we've got to draw a line and say no more. No more.
Just going to jump back to the PDF. So, yeah, I totally recommend I recommend everyone to actually see the whole movie. It's actually interesting history of how things can actually go wrong. So due to the lack of the knowledge of human behavior and insight behind the modernist housing project and the location that they chose for this project, the sense of isolation from the wider community and very poor design and sterilized public spaces made many of the people that lived there feel that their home were created for people that should not success in their lives. So if you imagine to grow up in that kind of area and with that kind of thought in your head, thinking that your life is not going to be successful, and that's why you're living there. That's why you're living in this surrounding. So the reason for this wasn't a success project is not only because of the architecture and design, but it had a huge impact on the bigger picture. So that's why I took this example, because it shows very clearly how, like, family that kind of are growing up in those kind of scenarios, how like the life experience they are creating, the layers they're actually creating, like how the senses are taking in with like living there, have such a big impact on the next generation. So that said, of course, most architects do the best to deliver spaces for the people that are healthy, cost-effective, and resource efficient. Like this is 70 years ago, but it's good to see, because we're seeing the whole circle. We're seeing it from the beginning, and we're also seeing it from the end, and what impact it actually had on the humankind that was living there. But another example I want to show you guys, and that is example of a city that actually have a positive impact on the people. And I only can say this because I'm talking from my own experience, and I wanna show you. I want to show you Copenhagen. Copenhagen for me is a great city, and that's also the reason for I live here. Copenhagen is not only a beautiful city, and that's not the only thing I like about it, but it's because it's the balance between the humans, the architecture, the object, the landscape, and the nature it has. But again, I'm going to show you a little video. This video is more about why you should visit Copenhagen. But for those who doesn't know about Copenhagen, this will give you a little bit of picture of the city. So I'm gonna re-share my screen again. Let's see. Share sound.
Copenhagen has always been mega cool, but Lonely Planet has also chosen it for its best city to visit for Best in Travel 2019. Copenhagen is Denmark's capital city, and it's been popular with tourists for years and years, but 2019 promises to be a fantastic time to visit. Copenhagen is full of beautiful old architecture, from monuments to Rosenborg Castle with its gorgeous gardens, to the Round Tower, and of course there's the iconic Nyhavn Harbour. Nyhavn is a centuries-old harbour, and it's the classic place to go because it's absolutely beautiful with its old colourful buildings. But it's not the only thing to see in Copenhagen. There's plenty of cutting-edge design and modern architecture to see too. I'm just by the waterside, and I've come across these 5 trampolines that anyone can just come and bounce on for fun. It's brilliant. No wonder the Danes are so happy. It's also regenerating the older areas too, former industrial areas like the meatpacking district, which is now filled with really cool contemporary bars, indie spaces. It's a great, cool place to hang out. A brilliant example of this regeneration is Jespergade, which it's fair to say was one of the city's least salubrious streets. But thanks to the efforts of locals, this place has been completely transformed, and it's now got top restaurants, indie bars and galleries. Copenhagen has been at the forefront of new Nordic cuisine for years, and one of its most famous restaurants, Noma, has opened up at new premises and has its own urban farm. There's also a food revolution going on at the street level, One of the best places that you can try this is at Refn. It's a street food market in a former industrial area where you can try cuisine from all over the world sold from shipping containers. Could I please have a Domodar? It's so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Copenhagen is filled with loads of wonderful parks and green spaces where you can just explore and relax. The city is also really well set up for bikes with cycle lanes everywhere, and there's also an iconic structure called the Cycle Snake. Copenhagen is leading by example with sustainability too. You can even take a trip on a solar-powered boat. Tivoli is one of Copenhagen's most famous attractions. It's a historic amusement park, but even it's moving with the times. It used to close in the colder months, but now it's open for the winter season too. Oh, it's quite high! And there's plenty more to come in 2019 too. There will be a new metro line that will make it much easier to get from one side of the city to the other, and there's even going to be Copen Hill, a ski slope on top of a recycling centre. And with all this going on, why wouldn't you want to come to Copenhagen in 2019?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I'm gonna reshare the screen again. Here we go. Yeah, why wouldn't you want to come to Copenhagen? It's actually a great city. So when you have the opportunity to do that, I totally recommend it. I personally really like living here in Copenhagen, but Copenhagen is far from being perfect. Copenhagen, the reason for I like living here is because it has a positive impact on me and on other people. And when a city has a positive impact on the people, they feel more relaxed, happy, and engaged. Now I've shown you kind of two examples, and the reason for I am actually showing it is to talking about like not only project that we're working on right now with the focus of how they're going to solve the problem. It's more about that we have to have in mind that if the positive impact of architecture is seen only by psychologists and architects and not by the general public, then we risk that the impact of thoughtless architecture and design will never be addressed, and the field will continue to lack the resource necessary to improve the world we live in. So my point with these two, to show you these two videos, is because we're seeing something that already has been built, and we already can measure the result of it, and we still can learn of it. We can learn of the mistakes. We can learn of what we did good. But it's really important that we as architect designers don't just hand over the project and then close the door and say, this is it. We should close the loop by seeing if the problem solving that you have designed has worked or not. If it stands still, or if it's had even the negative result of it, or positive. But that's how we can enhance and be better of doing what we're doing. But also we have to remember that our design can have a huge impact on human life experience. And like when I started, like how I started this presentation, talking about the layers, talking about the memories, we have to remember that what we're designing and creating today has a huge impact on the next generation. And we want to create a better world for the next generations to come. And we are doing that. But we have to remember to also look at what have we been working and creating. So, and what are we giving? Are we giving good memories? Are we creating bad memories? What is it? So that said, like, let's close the loop. Let's get the data and the facts of what we actually are designing in the end. yeah, so that was my my kind of talk for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakel. We will see if anyone have questions. You can send it to us. We have Atif Sherry have question. Atif.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the presentation, Rakel. What do you know? I lived in St. Louis, so I'm here standing for St. Louis against Copenhagen, just to, for fair comparison. I haven't been to Copenhagen, but of course it's well known that it's a beautiful city. However, I don't think, I'm sure you are not making a comparison, but it was just an unfortunate coincidence, or that Protaigo failed. I think you mentioned that it didn't fail probably totally 100% because of architectural design per se, but for many other things probably. The most apparent of which is St. Louis is an extremely polarized city between ethnic groups. I don't think Copenhagen is, or probably it is, I don't know. So my hypothetical comment or question to you, what if Protaigo was actually designed and situated in Copenhagen? Would it have succeeded? You see? So let us change the context here. That is one thing. My other comment or question is, I'm still unclear about how to, I think this was at the beginning of your presentation, to instill certain thoughts or feelings or in the minds of occupants of a space, or how to uplift their spirits. But you didn't give us tools. Most of the people who are attending, just like me, are architects or designers. So we need design tools. How do you do that, if you have any? I don't know, how do we hypnotize people, for instance, or whatever. Yeah, so these two comments. I know in urban design, everywhere, everybody speaks about Protaigo. It is a failed experiment and all of that, but I think it's much deeper than just the architecture. Thank you very much.
I totally agree with you. And it's not to compare St. Louis or Copenhagen together. It's actually nothing to do with comparison. The reason for I took those two is just to show an example of the Protaigo housing complex was supposed to be a beautiful and successful project to help the poor. And I love this story because it was a success in the beginning, but over the 20 years, it kind of fast went down. And it's nothing to, it's a lot to do with the economy as well. So my point was, it's not only about the architecture, but due to creating, and we also have those housing complex here in Copenhagen, in Denmark, and I have to say they are poorly designed, and it affects the people here. It does. So it doesn't matter where in the world you create those. If you create a sterilized, unimaginary building, doesn't matter where you are located. It has an effect on you. It does. So my point is you were talking about the second. I'm kind of mixing those two comments. So the second thing, the essential, it is. Of course, you need tools, but I'm actually trying to break that habit of you as an architect need a tool. You have to use your own tools to sense, and that's we are so stuck with okay, you have a hammer and you have a nail, and then you punch it into the wall, instead of of course we are, but instead of figuring out what kind of wall is it, to understand the wall, the wall situation, the material of the wall. Now I'm talking about in the building architecture, architectural perspective. But if you thought about it as human, my point is maybe we should study the humans and put it better into our program, what it is we are affecting. And that's why I came up with these two samples as a city as Copenhagen, because that's my own experience. There are a lot of cities in the world that has amazing effect on people. I just took it because this I can do it from my own experience. So I hope I answered a little bit your question.
Okay, we have a question from Rashid. The question is there a framework that you use takes either generic human psychological needs and specific cultural needs into consideration in the architectural design?
I didn't get that. Please repeat.
Okay. Do you have a framework? I will read it again. A question that they would have be if there is a framework that Rakel has which takes either generic human psychological needs and specific cultural needs into consideration in architectural design.
If I had a special framework?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I understand the question right, but you're talking about like the previous question, if I have tools that I work with.
Mainly the question is about, are you taking into consideration the psychological needs and specific cultural needs in consideration?
How I work with it?
Yes.
Yeah. So how I work with it is of course, there's a lot of study about psychological human behavior, but it is actually the basic that I also use in my own senses that usually everyone feel or sense. If it's a cold surface or if it's a warm surface. I use the basic, what is it that you smell? What is it that you hear? What is it that you see and can touch? And I combine it because a lot of times when you work in the architecture field, it's a lot of pressure to finish the design. And a lot of the things that is essential is maybe not forgotten, but it's put in the second place.
So if you can summarize it, you're linking these senses with the design, let's say.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Okay, so there's another question from Bashir regarding the first projects that you mentioned, like the interior design and preservation or the innovation projects. What is the advice in taking consideration for the interior designers with that?
My first project, you're talking about the restaurant bar?
Yes.
So that project, when you walk into that restaurant, you're surrounded by oak on the floor, on the walls, on the ceilings. It's a certain sensation you get when you come into the restaurant. You get very warm feeling. You feel the nature is kind of surrounding you. Everything is made of oak and kind of raw. So what we want to give the guest, we want to give them a certain experience of feeling welcome and warm. And it's not only the surrounding that you're touching, it's also the people who greet you when you come in. It's the whole the package that they give to you. It gives you a certain sense that you are welcome to be in this room, and you feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Bob. Do you think that social architectural buildings today are better than the ones before? What did we learn of the past 30 years of housing for poor people?
Like I cannot I am not expert on that to answer that correctly. But we have learned a lot. I mean, this example that I took is from 70 years ago, and we have learned a lot through the years, and we're still learning. We're still taking everything in consideration of how we can create a well-designed housing complex for people that don't have that much money as well. But to answer the question, yeah, we have, of course, we have learned a lot from it, learned from our mistakes. But I cannot. I'm not expert on the low-income houses, unfortunately.
Okay. These are all the questions that we had. If anyone have more questions, please send it now so we can wrap up. So just wait about 30 seconds, then we'll say thank you again.
Thank you.
So it seems that's it. No one had more questions. Thank you again for this presentation. And if you can share with us your website, if you can write it in the chat, because I think everyone will be interested to see some of your preservation projects and renovation in South Africa specifically. If you can write it in the chat so everyone can access it.
Write it where, you say?
In the chat.
In the chat. All right.
Yes.
Cool. Where is the chat? There it is, chat. Here we go.
Please.
You get it?
Okay. Yeah, it's the same name, Rakel Karls, right?
Yes,
okay.
.com.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you again, and thanks to everyone who was with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great evening.
Good evening. Bye-bye.